So I wanted to make a video to help orient those people that may be wanting to start Survivor but don't know where to start. Welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. I usually do pop culture and trashy TV commentary on this channel, so please subscribe if that is your vibe. Today I want to talk about a show I'm super passionate about, and that is Survivor. Oh my god. So a couple of the Survivor seasons were uploaded to Netflix recently, and I'm excited to see a lot more discussion and a lot of more people on social media discovering the show. So I'm actually a relatively new fan of Survivor. I think I got into it in late 2018, early 2019. Once I discovered it, started getting into watching a few seasons, I was like, oh my god, why is there not more discussion about it? I felt like I had found this like underrated, huge fandom that is so good and so fun to be a part of. So I'm really happy now it's getting a lot more recognition and buzz for the great reality show that it is. I wanted to make a video to help orient you in case you are thinking about starting Survivor, might be considering it, maybe wanting to start Survivor but don't know where to start. There's been 40 seasons of Survivor, so I remember how overwhelming it is to walk into a franchise like this that is so established and so late in the game. But I'm so glad I got into it, and I would encourage you to do so as well if you enjoy competitive reality TV. It's honestly so interesting and exciting to watch. And in this video, I'm just gonna go into sort of what are the best seasons to start with, and what are the several routes you could take as a new fan of Survivor. And it will be spoiler free completely. I won't go into like, who wins or any details that, spoil any surprises of the show. I'm also gonna link this Reddit post that guided me in my Survivor journey. It is sort of like a quick ranking of every single season of Survivor and a quick descriptor of why it is placed where it is and why it's a good or bad season. So make sure to check that out if you want sort of like something to read that shows every season and ranks it against the others. So the general premise is that they take a group of people and put them on a deserted island, technically deserted beach, whatever, deserted location. They all have to survive the elements, play in challenges for prizes, and most importantly, vote each other off until one person remains at the end, and that person wins $1 million. It is a huge prize, very high stakes, and that makes it for really amazing reality TV, very cutthroat competition. So in case you're on the fence about starting it, I really recommend it. It has some great drama and conflict. It reflects really interesting dynamics within our greater society. Like they always say on Survivor, it's a microcosm of the real world. So there's a lot of like social issues addressed, like conflicts that reflect just things in the real world. It was the first reality competition show ever, so it's had a lot of time to experiment. And one thing I love about Survivor is that it wasn't afraid to experiment, which sort of led to some flop seasons for sure, with like twists that were just dumb or didn't work, but it also led to some great sort of twists and seasons that were so entertaining, and you never know what to expect with Survivor, and that sort of like I think helped them out in the long run to stay like really fresh with every season. Also, the host, Jeff Probst, is so amazing. One of the best reality hosts I've ever seen. He is just so cool and collected and professional. His presence is so comforting. It's hard to explain if you don't know. If you're a Survivor fan, you know how cool and awesome Jeff is, but I love Jeff. He's like the anchor of Survivor. Survivor's very like Big Brother, but in the wild, which I think Big Brother to me is a little dry because it is in a house. I think the Survivor is kind of like Big Brother in that they have to vote each other out, but it's not in the comfort of a nice home. It's in the discomfort of the outdoors. It's also very Hunger Games. It's like the real life, as close as we can get to the Hunger Games. Obviously, it's Hunger Games without the murder, but there is a lot of like interesting parallels that you can see between the dystopian movies franchise and Survivor, the show. So Survivor does have its faults, and a big one has been sort of the diversity on the show. It historically, especially in the earlier times, did not have great diversity. It actually did have like some diversity for the time. Like, I think it's been important for showing sort of LGBT representation specifically in Survivor. I think because of that, Survivor has a pretty large LGBT fan base as well. But it has lacked in sort of showing just diversity in people in general. Generally, it's a lot of like skinny white model types, men and women. And it's pretty blatant in a lot of the seasons that they don't cast many people of color. Like, that is a big critique of Survivor, I think. And it's exciting that they have committed to casting 50% non-white cast members moving forward, which I am excited to see. Honestly, I'm going to talk about the season in a sec, but the best season, in my opinion, of Survivor is one that had the most diversity just by the numbers, and I don't think that's a coincidence. And I'm excited to see just more diversity moving forward. I hope they stay to this commitment, and I'm going to be watching out for it for sure. So let's start with the show, and where do we go from here? It's a new show. Where do we start? There's a few options you have to begin, obviously. Well, there's 40 options you have to begin, but let me start with where you access it. So Survivor is accessible most completely on Paramount Plus, the new streaming service. It has every season, every episode. Hulu has a lot of Survivor seasons, given some are missing episodes. I don't know why that is, but some Hulu seasons are missing episodes. So just be careful if you are watching it on Hulu, you're going to have to check sort of what episodes it has. It's mostly complete seasons, but it'll miss an episode here and there, which is super annoying, but just pay attention because sometimes it could like spoil you if you skip an episode. But Hulu has like a lot of seasons, I think into the late 20s, maybe even early 30s of the seasons. Then you have Netflix that has 2 seasons. Netflix has season 28, which I think is the one a lot of people are starting with right now, and season 20, which is sort of regarded as the best season of Survivor of all time. Let me begin with this piece of advice for Survivor. If you're familiar with other TV shows, like especially I'm thinking RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul's Drag Race has All-Stars and regular seasons sort of separated out. All-Stars is a spin-off of the original sort of season of RuPaul's Drag Race. Survivor does not do that, and Survivor does do All-Star seasons pretty often. Survivor has even gotten to the point at 40 seasons, season 40, to do an all-winner season. So I would recommend when you're starting out with Survivor, avoid any All-Star season until you watch a few regular seasons, because anytime you start an all-star season, you will get spoilers for everyone on the cast, who won, who placed what. So the all-star seasons will give a lot of spoilers to other great seasons that you don't want spoiled if you can help it. And most of the all-star seasons are some of the best seasons, so it's really great to see the people on their original season first before you see them on an all-star seasons where they really shine potentially. Also, in Survivor, winners of the seasons come back quite often to all-star season. Usually in other shows, we don't see the winner come back for all-star type seasons, but in Survivor, winners come back very often. So if you pick an all-star season to start, then there will likely be former winners on there and you will get spoiled of that winner. Season 20 on Netflix is an all-star season, so there's only one season available on Netflix that I would recommend starting with. Season 28, and that is Kagayan. If you want something accessible and very polished, I think season 28 on Netflix or on Hulu, wherever, is a great place to start. It has all the elements that make a great Survivor season. They have the well-oiled machine of Survivor down. It has an interesting cast. It has great twists and turns, great dynamics, blindsides. It is a great season to start with to get you hooked. I would say this is the I'm here to have fun route of Survivor watching if you start here. Maybe you're unsure if you're going to like Survivor, but you're not fully convinced on Survivor. I think this is the route you need to go at first, and that is sort of like watching some great seasons first, no matter the order. The only con to this route and starting at season 28 is that if you go back to watch older seasons, you might be a little bored. Especially like seasons 1 through 10 or so. Those first few seasons are a lot more slow. So let's talk about a different route you can take, and that is the traditionalist route. I know people that won't start a TV show without going in order of number 1 to number 40. And that's fine. You can attempt that. There are just like a lot of seasons of Survivor that are sort of duller. And I worry about recommending going in chronological order to everyone because Survivor could lose you because of a dull season, basically. And I don't want you to give up on Survivor because there's a lot of great seasons. And the great thing about jumping into a franchise this late in the game is that you can skip all the dull seasons. There's information out there like this video, the list I linked down below, that tell you which seasons are just sort of duds and they exist. There's been 40 seasons. I do often recommend if you're a traditionalist and want to see sort of the origin, want to see things move in order, do start with season 1 of Survivor and see how you like it. If it loses your interest, sort of try option 1, going back to season 28 like I mentioned earlier. But if you're feeling like good about Survivor, like you probably will like it, try to watch season 1. It's very interesting. It's very like trying to capitalize off of the fame of, what's that movie? Castaway. It's very documentary style, very rugged. It doesn't feel like reality TV the way we know it now. A lot more emphasis on survival. So that's the thing about the early seasons of Survivor. The emphasis is heavily on surviving the elements. I think it was because of the movie Castaway, and then we had the TV show Lost emphasizing this idea that people are like fascinated with the lost on a deserted island trope in general. Season 1 I think it's very charming. It has a lot of charm and it is very documentary. So I do recommend it if you are more of a traditionalist, like to do things chronologically. I wouldn't recommend seasons 2 and 3 and even 4 and 5. The thing with those early seasons, so first of all, seasons 2 and 3 were an experiment with location gone very wrong. And basically the location they chose for these people was so brutal that it made for a very uneventful season, or just like a very like lame season, because the people couldn't focus on the politics game, the actual game of Survivor. They had to literally just lay there and just like be miserable because the elements were so bad. So seasons 2 and 3 were Australia and Africa, and they were like landlocked. So after those 2 seasons, they sort of figured out that having a body of water was important for these seasons. Then we get into seasons 4 and 5, which are better location-wise, and there is a little more gameplay, but like those first few seasons, there was so much emphasis on like being morally outstanding or morally ethical. Like just being ethical was so important in those seasons, and that gets kind of boring, honestly. Then comes season 7. So if you're a traditionalist but are willing to still jump around, I recommend going from season 1 to season 7, Pearl Islands, because season 7 is the first time that sort of strategic gameplay comes into effect, and people are no longer afraid to lie about sacred things. It's an important turning point, I think, to the game and the politics part of it, and sort of stooping to any level to get the $1 million, which later on in Survivor, you know, you can't trust what anyone says, really, but season 7, I think, was a turning point for that. And it's just a great season. It's one of the best casts ever on Survivor history. So season 7 is also a great one to start with. If you're trying to start old, but maybe the pre-season 7 seasons are too slow for you. If you're sort of in between and you're like, I don't know, I kind of want to try something in the middle. You're like, I don't want the oldest one. I don't know if I'm gonna be hooked by that, but I do want to see sort of like more original, so I understand the modern ones better. If you want something in between, I definitely recommend season 13, which is Cook Islands. Cook Islands, I think, is my favorite season, and it was the one I was talking about earlier that has the most diversity of any Survivor cast. The way they did this was not the most, politically correct. It was a little problematic how they divided up the tribes in the first few episodes of this. So Survivor often will have themes. So like there's one season that's like millennials versus Gen X, and which is actually a good season. They'll get like categories of people to make the season interesting. But in Cook Island season 13, they divided people up by race. That's obviously kind of problematic now looking at it, but it made for an excellent season because we sort of had, a quarter of the people be white, a quarter were Asian, a quarter were Latino, and a quarter were black. And it made for a very interesting dynamic cast. And I still love that season because it is just so, the cast is amazing that came out of it. That's a good one I recommend, where Survivor had found its footing. It's pretty polished. It knows what it's doing as a show, but it's still old enough that you see some of the foundations of things that become staples later on of Survivor. It also, it makes a lot of stars of Survivor that come back a lot later on. I also recommend Survivor China, which, oh my god, is it season 15 or season 16? That's a great season as well, that is in the same vein of like old but still polished as a Survivor season. And then if you're just looking for modern seasons, I think 28 is a good starting point, and a lot of the seasons after 28 that are not all-stars are also pretty solid and similar enough to season 28. Season 28 was really great as a season, but like a lot of the seasons after it have very polished sort of process, and they're very polished seasons. So season 28 was sort of like another turning point to, like, I would say modern Survivor. And then in general, as a beginner, I recommend watching as many seasons before season 20 as you can. So seasons 1 through 19, watch as many as you can. Definitely watch season 1, season 7, season 13, Cook Islands, and Survivor China. Those are very important to watch before 20, and then watch as many as you can. Season 8 is actually the first All-Stars and is also a great one to watch. And I would apply the same rule. Watch as many as you can before 8. I think 1, 7, maybe 4 are the most important. But season 8 was a great season, actually. It reminded me a lot of the Hunger Games, to be honest. So watch as many as you can before season 8. And also, season 16 is one of the All-Star seasons before 20 that is really important to see. It is a really great one. Lots of feminine energy in that season. It is so great. Like, the feminine power in that season is the greatest of any Survivor. The goal should be, as a beginner, to get to season 20, which is the All-Star season called Heroes versus Villains. And it is an amazing season. That is my general advice. A lot of the modern ones you can go ahead and watch as a beginner that are standalones. There are a lot of great All-Star seasons as well. There's an all-winner season, season 40. But I would recommend just like working towards season 20 at first. Try to avoid All-Stars if you can. Try to work towards season 20 because season 20 is the best season. And then after that, try to work towards season 40, which is the all-winner season. Obviously, that one is full of spoilers because everyone on the cast is a winner. So you want to watch as many as you can before season 40. And that is sort of my general advice for Survivor. Please leave any questions you have in the comments if I didn't answer them about where you should start in Survivor. I feel like these 3 sort of paths are great starting points, and you can sort of determine which one suits you best. But let me know if you have questions. I love Survivor. I love talking about it. I have not seen every single season yet, but I am working through them. But yeah, let me know what you think of Survivor if you're thinking of watching. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I love talking about reality TV, pop culture, commentary, trashy things on Netflix, among other miscellaneous things. You can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about my new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. I upload twice a week. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.